Hello and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. I'm Michael Sidgwick, joined by fellow Dudley boy Michael Hamflett to discuss everything that went down on last night's show. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure to subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Where we preview and review Dynamite, Collision, Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0. Pay-per-views, premium live events. We have wrestler interviews on occasion. One is just dropping with Joe Hendry, so keep an eye out for that. Wrestling roundtable discussions, sometimes Q&As, and a roundup of the week complete, of course, with a bloody good quiz on wrestle culture. Hamflett, as is tradition, what are your broad thoughts on last night's Dynamite?
It's all right, wasn't it? Like,
wasn't bad.
A couple of...
it's more like promising than the experience.
Yeah, I think there's I've got like really high hopes for the summer.
Same. That's exactly what I said in Ups and Downs.
It's like I don't know if it's the Owen leading into All In or the pressure being off All In general because they did it. Like, there's no worry about aiming to beat last year's crowd because they physically can't.
And they've lowered our expectations.
A little bit, right? But the pressure is off. But what they have instead is just a nice, big-ass stadium card to book. That's going to be cool. Forbidden Door, you talk about lowering expectations. Forbidden Door has even taken on a different shape this year because it couldn't not. Like, CMLL haven't just come in to, like, prop up the obvious deficit left by New Japan losing some of its biggest stars to AEW. So Forbidden Door just feels different this year.
Yeah.
Different kind of pay-per-view build. It's part of the monthly cycle rather than just one of, 5 special events. So it's not this white or even red hot product, but a cool set of things feels near enough for me to see, even if I can't quite touch it yet.
Yes, indeed. I'm really happy. I used the exact same thing. The summer's heating up. I'm looking at the direction. I feel like they might have signposted it to an extent, but there's different permutations. I think they've done a good job of overlapping, and we'll get into what I'm talking about specifically shortly. But there's a few permutations of the matches they've teased where I think you could, like, sub out one of the wrestlers and one for another, potentially. We'll get to that imminently, but the show begins with Maxwell Jacob Friedman making his return as the babyface he probably should have turned into the second he decided not to be a heel anymore. But, you know, the atonements happened, etc., etc., etc. He comes out and he says that if you're wondering why his eyes are a little bit bloodshot and squinty, it's because they're in Colorado, baby. And, you know, I've done some research. And because cannabis is legal in Colorado, I think Maxwell was alluding to the fact that stoned already. So I think he was high.
Very good.
I think he was high.
I thought it's just the altitude was high, but he was too.
No. Yeah.
You cleared it up for me. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm always happy to help in that way. So he comes out, and basically the general gist of this promo is that in a really naturalistic fashion, I didn't think this was contrived at all, sets up his short and medium-term direction. He teases 3 potential dream matches, and AEW tends to follow through on these teasers when they are given to the audience, and his short-term direction with an interrupting Roosh a few minutes into the promo. He says, and I like the way he goes about basically telling you, I'm going to have these matches at some point. It's not like, I want to wrestle this guy or whatever. He couches it all in the fact that he deems himself the very best in the world. And he has like a sort of a verbal attack on those who he deems pretenders to that throne. And the general gist is, I'm saying this because it's something I would say, but I'm also telling you what matches you're probably going to get out of me imminently. He says that Kazuchika Okada can't be the best in the world because for all the sports cars that he buys, he can't even afford a gym membership. He says basically that Swerve Strickland isn't particularly great at cutting promos. Swerve Strickland proved him wrong later in really hilarious fashion. And he also said it can't be Will Ospreay, bruv. He does a very good Cockney accent, better than mine, even though I'm from England, because mine comes out Australian half the time. He says that Will Ospreay, and he goes for the obvious joke about British people. Come on, Maxwell. We don't all have bad teeth. I mean, I'm not one to judge, but the rest of them, look at his teeth.
I got lovely teeth.
He's got incredible teeth, as
nice
Michael Hamflett. He's got American teeth.
Unfortunately, I'm very worried about our kids' teeth because our dentist just became one of them paid ones. Thanks to Tories. But we grew up in a nice sort of well state-funded dental UK version of the UK. We don't all look like toothless simpletons like those episodes of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
big book of British.
Not all of us. Not all of us. He also says about Will Ospreay that you can't deem yourself the very best in the world because you haven't defeated who I've defeated. Will Ospreay has defeated over half the names listed, but there's a couple there which you probably won't get the chance to do anytime soon.
And within AEW and Jeff's mind, he's always said this is the only place.
Indeed.
I got it on my leg. Nowhere else matters.
Indeed. So Ospreay has in fact beaten several of those names, but there's two in particular that he won't get the chance anytime soon in Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. He mentions Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley. And he also drops a Chris Jericho, and it underscores to me the extent to which Chris Jericho's star has fallen, plummeted, that when he mentioned Jericho, it was like, oh yeah, he was a name worth beating once upon a time.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
Yeah.
It just genuinely, it's scanned, it's completely surreal. Rush eventually comes out to interject, cuts a promo. Well, not really a promo. He has a few lines. MJF says, "Got to be honest with you, buddy. Didn't catch a word of that." And MJF, for a second time, at least in my opinion, feel free to disagree, does a really, again, like natural job of putting. You have to do the thing. Oh, you're my upcoming opponent. You're good. Mm-hmm. Here's why beating you means something or will mean something. And he really had the conviction, I thought, in his voice. I got the distinct impression, MJF, his latitude over his creative. I got the distinct impression by how much he seemed to want to build up Rush here, that he was sort of his hand-picked opponent. And I've got one more take on all of this before I get yours. I think it's an inspired idea having Rush be his first opponent as this sort of second crack at a babyface character, because as he said, MJF, pronoun boy, at Double or Nothing, you're not going to see any more kangaroo kicks. The idea is this is a babyface with an edge, how it probably should have been portrayed all along. So he's not going to kangaroo kick Rush or anybody for that matter. And the idea is Rush will beat his ass and he's going to sell and do this like sort of awesome babyface comeback. All of this is in theory when the match eventually happens. But I think Rush is a super inspired first choice. And I think MJF, with his great delivery, did a great job of saying, I'm doing this in the coming weeks and this in the coming months. Strap in, it's going to be tits.
The MJF here, and I'm glad you highlighted this. I want to credit him for this because he certainly took enough stick when he was supposedly in charge of all of his stuff that nobody liked last year. So I want to stay consistent and praise him for the stuff that I believe he was in control of here. MJF made me realize something as he was talking and as he was getting his character immediately over of something that in one promo, he was trying to bring something back to AEW that has been missing for ages. It flashed me right the way back to 2019 when AEW did something with almost every character on the roster when WWE never did it, and they have completely swapped places.
Yeah.
MJF spoke about 5 different guys in a totally natural way, in a totally normal way, whereas in AEW now it feels like everybody's pretty much just focused on the one person they're foo-heading with.
Yeah.
WWE have nicked it. WWE have taken it. In any given week, a wrestler's got this on the go, a wrestler's got this on the go. I talk about it all the time with Raw. So they're doing this now, but they're always keeping this in the background. Gunther's been an expert at it.
Yeah.
It used to be every character in AEW. It was this real feeling world where, yes, I'm wrestling you tonight, or yes, I'm embroiled in a feud with you. But don't think I've taken my eye off you. The Elite are masters of it.
Yeah.
Right? But almost nobody else in AEW does it anymore. And was it ever clearer than when Rush comes out and he's talking about like how, so what that you're back? Like, I deserve my opportunity too. Does he? Where's he been this year? I know.
Like, to be fair, he's beaten Martin Stone on Collision. You know what I mean? He's had the odd, and he beat Isaiah Cassidy in a pretty good match on Rampage as well.
Right, okay.
But it's Rampage,
But, there's a guy where you can't buy that this is a real feeling universe because he's talking in the same terms and you just can't buy it.
No, you can't.
Whereas an MJF is talking about, well, it's going to be you, then you, then you, then you. Why? Because I've got to do this to get back to winning the title. I've got to do this to being considered the best. I know I am, but I've now got to prove it. God, I have missed characters feeling and living in this world the way that MJF was.
Yeah.
Even Swerve Strickland, who I'm so glad he was given the right to reply, as we'll get to later on, but even he feels a little bit too, binary in his motivations sometimes as the world champion when theoretically there should be 20 guys trying to lay claim to his throne. Yeah. It's always just Joe right now or whatever right now. This was more characters should speak like this, and if MJF is given this latitude to light the way for others to have that confidence, more power to them, because it just honestly it transforms your view of the AEW wrestling universe.
I completely agree with that, and I think for the first time now that you mention it, MJF, through the way he approached this promo, kind of substantiated that, no, this is where the best wrestle, even by burying these
No,
people who he
totally.
wants
Yeah,
to
yeah.
wrestle, you know?
If you've got like this like laundry list of guys, like, again,
Give me the possibilities that they can even interact on the same show.
which is you're selling ideas more than you're selling like
Selling
individual matches.
anticipation.
It's like this is how it should be done. And again, it used to be a roster full of guys like this.
Yeah.
So like again, if this is like if other wrestlers were listening and thinking, oh, hang on, that doesn't feel fair. Do it too.
Yeah.
Make it clear that your motivations are not just isolated to the graphic you're against this week.
Absolutely. One more thing as well. I really liked how it was faithful to Rush's character, where he's not going to stand there and just wait to hear MJF talk more trash about him, have his own line. Like, sometimes MJF's back and forths could get a little bit formal in that way. There's a really good pull-apart brawl to end this. And the tiny glimpse you got of their physical chemistry, I thought was really sort of
I love the
captivating.
matchmaking, I should point out.
That's great.
Again, the story...
It's the best way to get that babyface out of MJF.
On Rush's side, it's a little bit like, is it? But like the match itself, I'm glad they've gone with it.
Yeah.
It absolutely feels like the right sort of first
Like
opponent
an
back.
anti-kangaroo kick match.
Yeah.
Like a really sort of... like really well thought out, how do we get MJF to be a badass babyface? In the leather jacket, that's what he's going for, and Rush is the guy to bring it out of him.
He kind of gets to like out-bastard him.
Yeah.
As his first roll out of the babyface with heel tendencies.
Yeah.
He's fighting a guy who's going to have to not cheat necessarily, but he's going to have to fight dirty.
Dirty, like really, really dirty. We get decent, and I appreciated the effort video package of Roderick Strong training alongside the Kingdom ahead of the main event. After which we get, and I didn't know if this was advertised, but I sleep on UK time, so who the hell knows, a four-way match promoted to determine who was the number one contender to Will Ospreay's international title, in which Rey Fenix, Orange Cassidy, and Kyle O'Reilly all fight for the chance to pin Jay Lethal. And I know I'm taking the piss there, but genuinely I thought, other than I know who's taking the fall here, who's going to pin him? I had an inkling it was going to be Fenix, but what I thought was clever about this is that there are three viable reasons for each of the non-Jay Lethal wrestlers in this match to win. So Kyle O'Reilly, I think he's been consciously booked, like deliberately booked as a wrestler who's in and around the various title pictures. And I think like one more near loss in a title match could send him over the edge and he could turn heel and pick up where he left off with Roderick Strong, for example. They've been telling that story that he was shaking Ospreay's hand a little bit too long. He's been looking at Copeland's belt.
He had the mental strength to reject him when he came back, but that's been eroded now.
By the lack of confidence. So I thought there's a claim for him. I thought with it being Forbidden Door season, the idea that they could run back Will Ospreay versus Orange Cassidy could be a helpful like televised reminder when like the luster of the show is faded in parallel with New Japan's fortunes. Oh, this is how cool it can be. This will evoke your memory of how cool the first one was, and the third one could be just as good, so buy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I thought that could have been, and Cassidy's always in the mix and kept strong as well. Phoenix versus Will Ospreay, I think I kind of knew it was going to be Phoenix, but I had the suspension of disbelief to believe otherwise, purely because you don't put Phoenix in a match like this and not have him win because people would just think, oh, we're not getting Phoenix versus Will Ospreay. Totally. It's a very, very, very specific and very, very anticipated work rate dream match, you know? And this only went about 9 minutes, and I thought that was to its benefit. There was no flab on this whatsoever. I thought the placement of Kyle O'Reilly was fantastic because basically there was like loads of flying bodies above him, and he was constantly like the Venus flytrap, like trapping people in that armbar, in a great sequence. It was like really scorching at times, this, for how long it went. Kyle O'Reilly gets, I think it was Jay Lethal in an armbar, and the very second he wrenches the arm back, like blink and you'll miss Phoenix do the double foot stomp. Like it was like paced really well to sort of give you those Dynamite party match palpitations. Nothing of the caliber of the very best AEW, like nothing on the like last week's even, the Casino Gauntlet. But it tried to have that energy, and for a few moments I kind of felt it.
I agree. Phoenix, for me, has needed a night like this, especially with them lining up the Ospreay.
He looks great as well.
Yeah, you cannot line up the match that makes all the sense in the world on paper if the wrestler still isn't part of it. If it was going to be a Rey Fenix who, like, I'm not saying Rey Fenix has like gotten lazy or stale or anything like that. I'm absolutely not saying that, but his style has been normalized by the increased presence of it. There are so many wrestlers that...
It doesn't hit like it did in 2019.
Exactly, yeah. And then...
I mean, it will next week.
For a night, he did, in order to sell you on next week's and to remind you of why you want that match so much. And remind you of, like, well, in the laundry list of Will Ospreay matches, he would have been one of them, and next week's going to bang. So this was a great night for Rey Fenix in that respect. Jay Lethal was so... Like, he was kind of... As you say, the designated jobber and a little bit just the glue to like piece things together. But I thought Orange Cassidy was tremendous here as well. Like if anyone was gonna like fall into the background here, it was going to be him because he's obviously got another story on the go. I didn't buy him winning. Really, they've just put him and Ospreay together as partners. So I was more thinking of the lines of, well, they're mates now. They're not going to go at that match for a little while yet. Possibly even when Ospreay is the world champion. I think is when you do him and Orange Cassidy as a singles, maybe Dynamite match. So he was the guy I thought would win the least. And yet continues to have these like fighting babyface performances where like something in me says that they might be. Again, I'm trying to think big picture again. I'm trying to think MJF laying out the seeds, AEW trying to like rebuild itself as a brand. I still think they see Orange Cassidy as a possible world champion. I think that this Trent thing is he's not lost everything, but he had to shake some of the trappings of the mid-card in order to move up. And I'm starting to see Orange Cassidy as like a long-term guy again. While there's still time, he's not old, but he's not a young guy. Yeah. He fools you because the gimmick still feels fresh 5 years later. But this wasn't his time for now. This was for that match next week. Yeah. They sold you on a... Like, is Ospreay going to have a party match next week? Because I think he might. But they sold you on an Ospreay party match by having a Dynamite party match. And I thought that was a nice, effective match to build a match booking.
Yeah. I thought this was like really strong, all told. In the aftermath of the match, Don Callis and Trent? Who's Trent? I know who Trent Beretta is, but I don't know who Trent Beretta is. They come to the ring. Callis gives Trent the chair. Cassidy balls up his fist with a chain. Then Statlander comes out, stands between them, and then what happens here? Yeah, Statlander punches Cassidy in the face.
Punched him in the face. That was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool, because obviously he's not going to fight back. And then Willow Nightingale comes out to make the save, setting up presumably Orange Cassidy of Best Friends teaming with his now 700th friend in Willow Nightingale. This is one of the better ones.
It's a good mixed tag, this, isn't it?
It's a good mixed tag. Yeah. Orange and Willow versus Statlander and Trent. And, you know, I've missed Statlander wrestle, like, enormously. She's amazing, so I'm really looking forward to this.
I think she could, like, I'd rather see her get the win for her team over Cassidy than I would Trent at this point. Like, I don't really care about Trent and Don Callis' new thing, but I was picturing Willow in the Orange Cassidy aviator up in the denim and whatever. That's going to be brilliant.
Oh, she could do that in the entrance.
Yeah.
Like bespoke gear for the match.
The two of them together as a team. Chris Statlander, I love this heel turn already. Like they gave her like loads of promo time last week when it's not her strongest suit. What do we know about her? She hits mega hard. She just floored Orange Cassidy with a single punch. Like, I think they feel invested in Chris Statlander. And again, I keep saying this, it's not a title program.
Yeah.
She's not a champion yet. She's not competing for a title. AEW's Women's Division 2024, just good, like good stuff.
It is good. It is good. I just wish there was more of it and less of where we're going next. Ugh. And that's with Chris Jericho. Ugh. Right. He arrives to the building. He's got his branches, Big Bill and Brian Keith, with him. He gives some pointers to the driver, saying that he's been driving a car for several years, need to do this, that, or the other. And he then, people are starting, sometimes I'm an arsehole, right? People are now cottoning on to the fact that Chris Jericho's gimmick is pretty close to that of the Young Bucks. Made the point about a month ago. And he'd done it again here. He's even seen the bye guys and all the rest of it. Like, I did pick this up a few weeks ago.
That's a stolen catchphrase from somebody else I can think of, but we'll not.
In another parallel, Chris Jericho runs into the camera operator and says, look, you're wobbling your camera about. Give it to me. Then Chris Jericho says, this is what you need to do. And obviously he's messing it all up and it's out of balance and it's shaking. But he's a narcissist and he's like delusional, so he thinks he's doing the right job. Is this not exactly what the Young Bucks did when they wanted the action replay from Okada in the match against Eddie Kingston?
Yes, picking on the production basically, yeah.
Yeah, basically being bad with cameras.
Yeah.
Was the Young Bucks bit like 2 months ago. It's like Chris Jericho doesn't even know what he's stealing anymore.
Jericho's pretty good with cameras. He's got a history of it. He invented that spot of stealing it in the, like, he did it against Naito, did it against Cody.
Yeah.
Like, he's actually quite handy with a camera. This is so dumb.
We'll get to the worst offending example of my take, but what's your broad take on it? We're going to go bit by bit.
I think the learning tree was a shoddy gimmick.
And the learning tree
was a shoddy idea rooted in, let us not forget, every building flatly rejecting Chris Jericho for reasons both real and kayfabe.
Yes.
Right? Never lose sight of that, because that's like...
Not
you. I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to anybody.
Speak to the camera then.
Anybody that likes this right? Oh, God.
Oh, it's your job, tech boy.
It's Jericho, man. Right? I'll have to write that down at some point. 20 seconds or something, 20 minutes. I just cannot bear...
I'll write it in our messaging.
20 minutes, 30 seconds. The new idea that Chris Jericho has expanded from teaching Big Bill and Brian Keith, and for that matter, anybody else that joins the stable, the ways of the wrestling business to the ways of everything. Literally everything. He wakes up in the morning, he goes to make a cup of tea, and then he tells the kettle, well, actually, I ought to boil the water this way. That's what we're led to believe now, but every second of Chris Jericho's day.
The idea is that's how, like, he's got such hubris that he has to tell everyone how to do everything.
What's that got to do with wrestling? He's lost sight of what we're doing here.
He has. I tweeted this. It's worth fleshing out, I believe, right? He has the same energy of a 2006 new WWE act. Ooh. With that incredibly synthetic, I'm a TV character, but I kind of don't even know it, voice, who just kind of disappears, and you think, oh, I remember that. I remember 2006 specifically had like the Spirit Squad, and it just felt really cartoonish all of a sudden. Jericho has that 2006 WWE character energy where it's like, this person speaks in a cadence that nobody else does. This character seems to exist in a world that just you cannot take seriously. Do you know what I'm getting at with this? It's like he's turned into a cartoon, and for that matter, he's a worse cartoon than New Simpsons. Like, he's just a cartoon character. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was doing the whole, I still have my TV time, vaguely, that's Chris Jericho being the disingenuous Chris Jericho, but on a more meta level. Yeah. You know? This is the guy who, there was always one rule for Jericho and a different rule for everybody else. That's one of his big sort of character traits over the years. You can still see a real life Chris Irvine within that character, just playing it differently. Last night, he was cartoon, the speech pattern.
Wasn't he hated on Rampage because he just shouted loud as a commentator? He was a bad commentator because he just shouted loud. Yeah. So now he's dropped that element of his job because he needs to spend more time shouting loud elsewhere.
He does the. It's like one of those, like, you know, those random backstage things where a character would like Dolph Ziggler shaking everyone's hands.
Yes.
Or what was it that Johnny Curtis was doing originally? Those terrible jokes.
Yeah.
There's no use crying over spilt milk.
Spells it all over himself.
Yeah. It's like one of those WWE, like one of those uniquely awful WWE characters popping up in random backstage segments.
Simon Dean forcing people to do press-ups and then eat burgers or whatever and be sick.
It's like a 2006 WWE, what is going on character? Like, how can you possibly envisage this character in a wrestling context? It's like there's no Chris Jericho anymore. The idea of, like, he's this big sort of legendary wrestling mind who's got an ego on him and he demands his TV time. And, you know, you might think he's out for himself, but, you know, he's here to bring along the youth and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
He's a cartoon.
I can't think of it. I hate the comparisons that you get between AEW and, like, latter stages WCW. Like, you made this point years ago.
When it's like 2006 WWE.
When we were in the trenches of, like, 2019, 2020 WWE.
The trenches in this job. You are not remotely inaccurate.
Thank you. And you were saying we need to change the comparison point. This is 10 times worse than Russo's WCW. And it was. It was way worse. Stuff just happened.
And they had no excuse for it to happen because they had the access to virtually anyone in the world. Yeah. They had an audience who were telling them to do certain things. No competition.
It was as bad as it got, right?
All the money, all the resource.
With the one difference being that the WCW complaints back then were that there was a bunch of old guys that were no longer having good matches, that no longer had older characters, and just would not get out of the way. Jericho suffered it himself and left in 1999 as a result. He's them. The matches don't stack up. The characters make...
Drags down the pay-per-views.
The matches don't stack up. The character makes no sense. Nobody gets over in his orbit, in his vortex, right? You can't just have that. People said it because it was a shoot, mate, you loser. Like, you can't just take that and make it
He already
yours.
has.
Yeah.
So,
like, this is those Hogan FU New Blood matches. You know, this is those, like, still nobody wins. Nobody gets anything out of this other than you. Like I said it before, like, audience of one when it was Vince McMahon was really frustrating because it was happening to so many other characters. Thank God that Chris Jericho's audience of one isn't Tony Khan. It's Chris Jericho. Thank God it's not Tony Khan.
Yeah.
Because if it was, we'd see it.
Do you reckon Tony thinks this is rubbish, but thinks he's
100%.
a star asset, and
100%.
It's too awkward for me to say no to him because he just doesn't have that, like, ruthless, like, streak in him.
Yeah. I invite the loud critics of people that said that MJF had too much stroke in 2023 to offer their opinions on this.
I mean, the same people, Hamflett. I know you have this bugbear on this MJF thing.
I do.
You do. The exact same people hate this. Come on.
I hope so. I'm seeing some sideways laughing emojis.
Oh, that's the engagement account.
I hope so.
The actual people who are
yeah.
worth listening to hate this as much as everybody else.
Good.
Except a lot of people are watching it on TV, and I do not understand why. Well, a relatively large amount of people, we should say. More on Jericho later, because the whole bit is, I'm so important that you have to follow me around all the time. It's a meta extension of the Cloud Vampire shtick. Away from that asshole, we go to the complete opposite in terms of energy. A Willow Nightingale backstage promo.
Yes.
Yet another really good one. Like, this won't be remembered as like a landmark or anything like that. Because, you know, as with most things in wrestling, quality is weirdly conflated with length. This is a short backstage promo conducted by Renee Paquette, in which Willow Nightingale says, "My strength is my smile." And then I kind of got electrified when she says this. She basically does, like, she does the Jeff Jarrett pace, like, don't piss me off.
Yeah.
Like, do not piss me off. You don't know how dangerous that can be. When an ordinarily nice, virtuous babyface has things done to them that turn them this way, it's kind of exhilarating. Willow Nightingale grasped the living hell out of this.
I've said this on a million podcasts before. What's one of the things I love the most in wrestling? Two people that have had quite a serious foo-ed that, like, have mutual respect and come together. Her showing mutual respect for Mercedes Moné, and then also saying, "I haven't forgotten, mate. One of these days you're going to get your ass kicked, Mercedes." Like, I love that. I love where she is at right now mentally with the loss to Mercedes Moné.
Yeah.
Like, sold me on the rematch instantly, and yet understands that right now they're a big fish. Friends, echo the MJF thing. She is a character that lives in this world and cares about multiple things within it. And again, good booking of her.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, sorry, I'm just a bit confused. We got Christopher Daniels comes out.
He wishes, doesn't he? He wishes.
It's so weird, this. He comes out, saying what he said last week, making this even more redundant, that we're crowning a new TNT champion at Forbidden Door in a ladder match, and there's going to be a qualifying match to take place right now. AEW has existed for 5 years without an on-screen authority figure. By presenting fixtures and the good faith audience who is sizable and invested enough to, it's looking more likely that they're going to get a really good TV deal. This audience has not missed someone like Christopher Daniels doing this. I do not understand why Daniels is doing this, particularly when the whole idea is, well, Tony Khan's medically cleared to travel, his neck's fine, and he's backstage in the go position.
Optics reeked, by the way, because Tony Khan on Collision greenlit this world title match, the proper stuff, the world title. Christopher Daniels is given TNT / Ring of Honor in terms of Mark Briscoe. So it's almost like he's being presented as nobody wants to do the busy work of the TNT title of Ring of Honor. That's second tier stuff. Tony Khan will deal with the world title. The Young Bucks will deal with Elite Business. You can do the paperwork on the rest.
Why does anyone have to do anything?
Why does anyone have to do anything?
Why does anyone have to do a goddamn thing?
We're in that, like, hierarchies.
I still want administration.
Vicky Guerrero is helping Stephanie McMahon. She's got an assistant of her own type thing now where Jonathan Coachman was never allowed to just be a GM. He was always like somebody's helper or whatever. That's Daniels now. It's really rubbish, and I don't know how it's happened. As you say, like, you know how it would have worked previously? Shivani said, yeah, there's going to be that tournament we talked about for the TNT title, and it's starting right now.
I'm starting by the number one boss.
Yeah, it's starting right now.
And we'll get to the books on how they still have power or whatever the hell is going on there imminently.
Hey, I called that, didn't I? One of the highlights of Dynamite, I was right on the money. Like, stop the dreadful acclaimed feud right now. It's minimizing the Elite and the Young Bucks.
It just did as well.
It just
did. But before that, Mark Briscoe defeats Brian Cage, so he advances to the ladder match. In doing so, that ladder match has just got like at least 20% more insane. We know what Mark Briscoe is capable of. I would describe this as Mark. I don't want to sell Brian Cage short, but we've seen him lose on Dynamite more than like, you know, people lose on Raw. And this is the show with the rotating cast. Yeah. It's just kind of overexposed. This match, in terms of its action, was nothing really special. It unfolded in the way an underdog versus a horse heel does. Everything kind of strictly happened in the correct order. There was a really cool spot with Mark Briscoe doing that sort of chair-assisted somersault plancha to the outside. And yet, because Mark Briscoe has got such a wonderful connection with the crowd and can work them about as well as anybody else, like, they just, by the finish, they were gagging to see it. Mm-hmm. Like throwing babies in the air at this froggy bow with which he put Brian Cage away. There was a bit, was it in picture-in-picture or not, when I think he overshoots a dive, goes into the commentary table, what does he spills into the table. What does he pick up?
It's I don't know, was it like, well, it wasn't a drink, was it? But
it's like a bobblehead thing.
Yeah,
some
sort of little gimmick he's got on the desk. He's like, well, anyway, we're going to do this. It's Briscoe, right? It's a bit of a force of will in because, as you say, like, people love he arrives, it's like, oh, class, Mark Briscoe. And then they almost allow themselves to forget just how much they love him. And then that match hits that, like, final third, and you're just rooting for him. He's impossible not to root for. He's a bit of a cheat code, isn't he? I think in some respects.
I think, well, the way I frame this in ups and downs, if you want a transcript of this podcast, go to whatculture.com/WWE, is that, look, Tony Khan, we've discussed this extensively, has made every mistake a booker makes eventually. And now we're at that point. Where it's like, how do we clean up this mess? It's like on a case-by-case basis, you probably would have signed this wrestler, this wrestler, this wrestler when they became available. You'd probably see a Garcia and think, Christ, he's got something, give him a push. And now there's just too much and there's too many. And you think, who's it going to be? Like Takeshita, Roosh, Daniel Garcia, Jay White. Who are you going to really do something with to elevate them to that MJF, Ospreay, Danielson bracket, Moxley? Like, why can't it be Mark Briscoe on the strength of this reaction? The idea that it was all driven by sentiment. I don't think anyone held that opinion cynically. People just think Mark Briscoe's great because he is. Like, the reactions he gets, just, they kind of hit different.
I'm going to put...
he's a complete all-rounder. He can do everything. He wears every single babyface characteristic superbly. He can kill you if he wants. He's a very dangerous man in there. He can brawl. He can do high spots. He's really funny. His promos are amazing. Is there literally anything he can't do? And it's not as if he's ever chasing this, oh, I need to do this to be great, this to be great. He's just effortlessly, completely great. And I think they should be doing way more with Mark Briscoe.
And, like, you know, we can't ignore it. Like, the pathos remains there, doesn't it?
It's still there, but
forever. But
I don't necessarily...
It goes beyond that. It does go beyond that. Yeah.
Like, the thing is, I don't think it necessarily should be a sentimental thing, because I'm half in a mind. Sorry, I'll get your opinion on all this in a second. There's not much to the match, to be fair, though.
No, there's a bit of a wider thing happening, I think, on this Dynamite. I think you might hear it, but I'm going to put it over.
Okay. But, like, it's just... my first impulse is always like, oh, you should basically do the ROH title win, but with the AEW TNT title, and actually put it on TV, because he's like a great TV character. And I think, why does that have to be driven by sentiment? Yeah. He'll just be like a star. He's amazing.
Yeah. He's got loads to offer, hasn't he, beyond just the sentiment?
Yeah, he's class. He's a legend.
What I think might be happening here, and I don't want you to have your hopes built up by this nice appearance for Mark Briscoe.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I just think it should. I need to make that distinctly clear.
I think it's going somewhere. Mark Briscoe won here. Wheeler Yuta won here. The Kingdom were in the main event, profiled heavily alongside Roderick Strong. Tony Khan's got a Ring of Honor pay-per-view sell. And I don't think it's a coincidence that all of the champions who are typically just whatever, on like all of them featured.
Excalibur even mentioned that they've got it coming up in about a month.
It's the big Texas gimmick, isn't it? They're setting up
yes,
for a month or two in that esports.
I don't think they're going to do anything with Mark Briscoe. I'm just saying they absolutely should. Do you have any more thoughts on the match?
No, just that's why all of these guys might be getting profiled all of a sudden for like a 3-month window. Shrewd as far as corporate synergy goes, but probably for that more than for any of the other reasons.
Yeah. I should mention as well that Takeshita, with a wonderful pair of trousers, was watching from the stands alongside Don Callis, because obviously he's already qualified. I've got a suspicion that Jack Perry's going to win whatever qualifying match he's going to wrestle.
Can't wait for that.
Because he applauded it in a post-match promo, saying it won't matter I'm going to do it. No one sacrificed more to AEW than me. I don't care. Just like I need this AEW as a fictional construct to be out of AEW. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not stakes to me. And if you listen to Dax Howard's promo on Collision, they ain't stakes for anybody. Okay? Because boom, Dax Howard, boom. We get another backstage interview. Quite a few of these. Hook and Samoa Joe this time with Renee Paquette. Basically, they're going to have a match with the varsity athletes, Tony Nese and Ari Daivari. Basically, well, they must be the biggest heels in wrestling to you because they buried Crisps on this show, Hamflett.
Yeah, that's... No. I know what's more over them or Crisps. I think we both know the answer. Hook and Joe, man. Like,
could be bigger than this.
Could be. I hate it already.
You hate it?
Yeah, I do. I really do.
I think they've done a good job of Joe and Hook from January and how they've kind of kept it ticking over.
I think it's everything I think is wrong with AEW. I can't work out the tiers. I can't work out where anybody's supposed to live. Joe, like, I was reliably informed by the Good Take Havers that Joe was the guy for a reason. At the moment, he just looks like a guy with no reason. Like, he's just a guy in a shirt.
I mean, yeah,
he's found Hook, who's been buried by Chris Jericho. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to see Hook as this guy that's this like failed prospect that Joe's trying to drag up by his bitch. I'm going to teach you the ways of the business, kid. They're obviously going to win this match that doesn't look appealing in the slightest. No. I do resent the Funyuns getting buried. Maybe that's why I take this personally. But
you just said earlier that one of your favorite things is two wrestlers who've had a bit of a fouet coming together. Has this not earned it for you? So the match was pretty cool.
The match was pretty cool.
That bump.
That was probably the highlight of Joe.
The Uranagi bump on the announce table when the back of Hook's head.
That's fair.
Clipped the announce table.
I don't know. Like, are they still pissed off with Jericho? Has that got to come back around? Has Joe got to do something about that, or like the?
I think he's still meant to be linked in some way because he's got a better mentor who's better in like they're more kindred spirits. Hook and Joe, and eventually it might come back around. Who knows? I don't really care. No.
They're not on a show where there were quite a few things where I was quite optimistic about AEW. This was not one that made me feel that way.
Yeah. I don't know if I've made a note for all of the learning tree segments, so I think I'm just going to tackle them all at once. They approach Matt Menard and Angelo Parker, Jericho in that 2000s WWE, I'm just being told to do this weird voice for whatever reason, character. It's so bizarre. Sidles up to Angelo Parker and Matt Menard. It's the implication here that kind of like, I don't know, basically the idea is I'm responsible for you meeting your wife and having a kid.
Right, and this is why Jericho stinks. Because
Sorry. This is one of the reasons.
Yeah, sorry.
One of the reasons why Chris Jericho stinks. Just one.
The man has lost his mind. Because if you're doing an episode where you're going up to somebody, sorry to step on your dick, where you're going into somebody in catering and be like, this is how you serve yourself food, right? You are now a man that apparently just knows how to do every single thing. In the case of these two people, in Matt Menard, who's just got a commentary job on Rampage, directly as a result of Chris Jericho, and in Angelo Parker and Matt Menard and Zach to exist on television in these gimmicks, in this life, in kayfabe, because of Chris Jericho's influence in pro wrestling, and this actually makes sense with the learning tree thing. Like, this... In kayfabe, babyface is everything he's saying about being a mentor. He's found the only two guys in all of AEW that could actually argue the toss for him at all.
Yeah.
Maybe Jake Hager if he was still around. But otherwise, they're the only two. And he's like, well, I'll go and scream at you as well. He is not thinking this. He's just doing stuff. He's just saying, I'll just do this. There was two good lines in this. Like, to make that point. Like, what was it? Like, I'm an 8-time world champion, but a 3-time father. Like, that's funny. And then the Brian Keith thing, like, tell that baby to respect Chris Jericho. Like...
Right, on Brian Keith.
These are the characters where it's a good idea, but he's
still bad.
Blowing it because it's like, he doesn't think about the impact.
On Brian Keith and Big Bill, the branches of the learning tree, okay? The learning tree.
Oh, God, it's getting over.
It's Wilborn's getting over. Wilborn's forever over.
Yeah.
Big Bill was so much... He's basically playing the same character as Jericho with these sort of like motivational quotes... and this happy guy delivery. He was infinitely funnier when he was getting real weird with it. In like heat sequences, when he was like wiping his arse with t-shirts and checking that he'd got every skid mark.
Working with the lollipop in.
Or like the lollipop, or like doing like the eyes rolling back in his head. Who was that for?
Who was that against?
Was that not against when he was doing the Acclaimed? He was scissoring with his eyes going in the back of his head. He used to just be like, Big Bill, you're a weird guy. You're funny. I want to hang out with you because you're dangerous and you're funny, but I'll spend 15 minutes in your presence.
Oh, he stole matches.
Yeah.
Like, he knew how to maximize his minutes. Yeah. Use the industry term.
He is a cartoon now where he was genuinely, like, really getting over. He's getting under with his Jericho stuff. Maybe that's the point, guys. Maybe the whole point is, like, you're meant to think everyone's crap and you're meant to think everyone's, like, getting sucked into the vortex and their careers are being ruined.
Yep.
His career's being ruined. He was better. Brian Keith. That line was good. Make sure your baby respects Chris Jericho. I don't think, and maybe this will come with time, right? I don't think he's particularly good as this, the bad apple. He's playing the bad cop. He's the person who's meant to intimidate these people alongside Jericho. Bad apple, bad cop. He doesn't look unhinged enough. He doesn't look crazed enough. And I don't think he's got the comic timing for it either. This is a brand new role for him.
Yeah, we'll see. But and it's a tough role to break out from as well. Jericho's not going to let you.
Is it one of those things as well, like, there's a weird sort of the hand of the author thing with Daniel Garcia, where I was like, there was an added dimension to his character through this, you're just being thrust into a sports entertainer role. It didn't really take. Like, why does Chris Jericho... You know what Chris Jericho is, right? He's got... Daniel Garcia derailed his career, quite frankly, and they should have had a match and they didn't. What's he going to do? Like, not lose? He loses to everyone. He should have lost to Daniel Garcia. With Brian Keith as well, it feels like he's been forced into this role that he doesn't seem particularly adept at for now. I will stress that for now, because the whole idea is, you can't just be a wrestler forever. This is national TV, kid, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, you can, because this is AEW. I mean, it's literally where best wrestle, so you can be that character. Chris Jericho, the character, and, his reasons for having Garcia, he said this on his own podcast, was like, I need to learn the Gaga and the showbiz, and that's where I come in, blah, 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 blah. Chris Jericho was like a living, sentient performance center. He is, though, like, where he takes these wrestlers and he tries to smooth off the edges and like give them Titan training, the sports entertainment stuff. It's like, doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
And this is not WWE either. You know what I mean? It's like, why does he do this?
There's a thing as well with the current version of, like, the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho, whatever. This reeks of wrestlers just do stuff, because Big Bill and Brian Keith are the stupidest men of all time for agreeing to get with Chris Jericho now, when there is an acknowledged vortex of suck that kills wrestlers. They have picked the worst time. Like, the Inner Circle had a very logical reason to join up with Chris Jericho. Massively logical.
Yeah.
A startup company, and they've got the biggest star in the world champion. Why would you not? Like, you're taking that deal all day long. Daniel Garcia, crucially, bought into doing the stuff because Jericho donated to his recovery fund.
He was still a star as well, Jericho.
Yeah.
He was having that really acclaimed series.
But
with
when
Kingston
they revealed about
time,
the sponsor thing after the car
that was really great.
That was like, here's a guy, like, he's got my best interests at heart. So we were going, no, he doesn't.
Yeah,
but he's like, of course, did you pay for my recovery?
It's a strong start. Yeah. It's a strong start.
Like, there was always a reason and a justification why you would still go along for the ride with Jericho. Where's that now? Like, you would want to be as far away from him as possible. So the two idiots are idiots. They're not being fooled by, like, this carny that's found this clever way to be like the devil on your shoulder. They're just idiots.
They're just idiots. They're complete and utter morons. This whole thing sucks. And I just want to mention two more things before I'm just going to glide past my notes. My notes here. There's two more, I think. I don't care if there's five. I'm not going to cover them. Segments where one, I think it was right before this or in and around it, where he goes up to some guy in catering, and he goes, "Hey, as someone who's been eating," like he speaks as if the person has hearing difficulties or whatever. "Hey, as someone who's been eating chicken and dumplings for a long time, I need to tell you how to spoon it into a bowl. You fill up the spoon and then you put it in your bowl. Thanks, guys." And then walks off. He's a cartoon.
Yeah.
He's that 2006, why is that guy talking to someone backstage in a WWE segment in a way that nobody else ever talked?
Perry Saturn would do this when he had Moppy. Da-da-da-da-da, you're welcome. And then just walk away. And the whole idea was he'd been knocked silly by the acolytes, whatever it was. Like,
what's the voice? What's this voice?
He just does it.
He just does things.
Does stuff. He just does stuff.
And another one as well.
Some people like it.
I hate it. Stop watching it.
Yeah, please.
When he comes on screen, this is a protest. Just turn it off. And another thing as well.
The case the Americans isn't they can't be like, how do I get it back?
Yeah.
I can't up and down the channels.
What's up, down? What? Anyway.
Penny the click-or.
The remod. Anyway, so they're running a private party, and then they're going to have a match.
Poor guys.
The private party are going to be on TV time with Chris Jericho imminently. Next week, in fact. I think the idea is, hey, guy, private party couldn't even get a match on Rampage, really, until Chris Jericho came along. Then they had one segment on TV, and the match afterwards, which I won, and then they disappeared again. But, I tried. They didn't. It sucks already. I hate this. I want to skip it next week.
Imagine the Tony Khan, the shoot meeting where this happens. Bad news, good news, guys. Bad news is Matt's gone, and he ain't never come back. So you've lost the...
That's the good news.
You've lost the influence of Matt Hardy. Well, but the good news is, guys, I know you'd be sad about losing Matt Hardy. Chris Jericho just walks in. Hi, guys.
Hi, guys. When you do your wrestling moves, try not to flip so much and talk more in promos. He's a cartoon.
You mention it, right? And I understand why, and I don't think there's necessarily enough evidence just it's been magically fixed. Private Party should go to WWE. Them in the Performance Center in NXT. I'm not saying the edges need help. Not saying the edges need smoothing, but they've got enough. They need a change of scenery. They'll be on telly a lot. Yeah,
they'll be on telly a lot.
They're better than a lot of wrestlers there, even with their sort of flaws.
Yeah,
Private Party have got flaws. They're better than half the guys.
They'll never get rid of them because they don't get the reps. They don't get the practice.
Yep.
A tale as old as time. We go away from the learning tree forever.
Yes,
forever. Hopefully, the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass make their entrance. Max Caster motions to start his rap, but then we go to the big screen, and the one time in this promotion kind of where it's become normalized that I'm just going to go to the big screen, someone's just decided to click their fingers and they can get it on. These weird, insidious WWE trappings are just not sports-based presentation.
Well, I called it the Titantron that week.
Yeah.
People just think of stuff.
People just think stuff. And basically, the Acclaim's segment's cut short by the Young Bucks, who say it's basically petulant revenge for the Acclaimed coming out to kick their asses last week, or sending them scurrying anyway last week. And later in the night, the Acclaimed try and sort this out with the Bucks, and Anthony Bowens obviously isn't happy, and the idea is that the Young Bucks are going to wrestle the Acclaimed. I've got problems with this. There's stuff I'd liked on the show later, but I've got problems with this. Problem number one, what a terrible idea it was to have the Acclaimed be the Young Bucks. Short, medium term, bit of business we'll do on TV before the next big pay-per-view feud, right? Like, the Acclaimed have lost so much goodwill. The Young Bucks kind of need to be working with baby faces who are over. They really do. The Acclaimed are overexposed, an issue, and like the lack of goodwill, or this disintegrating goodwill, compounded by two more factors. In addition to them being overexposed, Max Caster's social media conduct has ranged from just stupid to, in one instance, deplorable. His raps have been tasteless, where they've been picked up from various places. And Daddy Ass is a parody of that veteran who will just no-sell everyone's stuff. So the Acclaimed aren't what they were.
Nobody loves the Acclaimed. It's the worst-case scenario.
Nobody loves the Acclaimed. And also, Matthew Jackson, I don't know if he was trying to hang a lantern on it or trying to fill the plot hole or whatever, was like, oh no, we don't think you deserve it, or whatever, the TV time or whatever. Your segments aren't happening because you disrespected us last week, your EVPs. We still got a little bit of stroke around here. Have you? It's one thing where the Bucks, right, they've never clarified anything. Before the TK Driver and all this authority figure stuff became like explicit as a storyline in the canon, I could buy, because I thought they approached the line without crossing it. All right, we've beat some geek jobbers on Rampage. Oh, we're the number one contenders. You can imagine that they've got in their contract, because we're the Bucks, we get special treatment. We can do what we want. And Tony, you kind of have to go along with it because it's perks of the job. They can't have the headsets on when Tony Khan is manning the go position and just interfere with other people's business. It's one thing to say, you know what? We're the Young Bucks, we're AVPs. We want a week off, or, we want to wrestle these guys, or we kind of want a title match or whatever. and they're not in the goal position. The whole idea, the whole premise, stupid as it was to begin with, that Tony Khan couldn't do his job remotely, was that, he's away, so we can, while the boss is away, we can come out and do some stuff. I mean, that makes zero sense now. This makes less sense as we go on every single week.
Well, to be honest, like, the Young Bucks doing so little almost makes it feel like they lost Anarchy in the Arena instead of winning it. I know there wasn't explicit stakes laid out, but surely the idea of winning that big match at Double or Nothing is them assuming more control. Like, the Dynamite credits don't have the Elite all over it anymore. They had more power before the big match they won at the pay-per-view, so it undermines the result of Double or Nothing. And this was the week, we've flagged it every week, by the way, this was the week that the Jericho overlap became untenable because there was so much of Jericho and so little of the Young Bucks. He felt like it was his role rather than him taking theirs.
In a small but not insignificant way, it's kind of always been Jericho's show.
Like, the Acclaimed, the bigger problem, I think, for the Acclaimed in this, you've flagged it, like, it's easy to forget the Young Bucks are tag champions at this point because the Acclaimed don't feel like contenders. Yeah. It should have been a big, I don't know who, I don't know what the magic answer is, but this. Not
much of a tag division.
Nah,
there's too many random, strange bedfellows. And I know it's a bait, but there's way too much of, hey guys, this guy's going to team with this guy?
No, yeah.
How cool is that?
Because there's nobody to, like, the Acclaimed, the Young Bucks have just won this massive match at Double or Nothing. And there's no obvious challengers, so you're left, like, they're dropping down into the mid-card, and they're not going to lose.
This random novelty stuff's completely overtaken the tag team division. Yeah. There's no tag team division of which to speak. Good news, something good happens next. Renee Paquette has a backstage interview with Swerve Strickland, and Swerve Strickland goes, MGF, welcome back, you little bitch. The way he says it is so goddamn funny, because he's doing, first of all, a million times better job of that full sincere bit than Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Right. And it's sinister with Swerve Strickland. I think he's just really funny.
Yeah.
Fallen back in love with Swerve Strickland a bit over the past 2 to 3 weeks. And he says, look, don't put my name in your mouth. Essentially, I will deal with you later. And he says it's going to be, what does he say? Let me just check my notes. I do genuinely have just lost my train of thought. Let's just check my notes. He has the envelope with the contract, the Forbidden Door. Give that to Ospreay. He'll pay for the shipping, and basically says he's going to kick Roderick Strong's ass.
I like just Swerve coming across as mega confident again. The MJF line was crucial.
And he mentioned the Elite as well.
Yeah, like, thank God he replied to MJF and isn't running scared of the Elite because he's the world champion. He cannot be this man on an island. He should be across all of his potential threats. So I thought, Swerve, again, like, probably a better night here than anything I particularly took from the match, truthfully. It was just nice to see him feeling like the top guy.
Yeah. We get informed by Excalibur that title for title is happening at Forbidden Door. Not with the Swerve Ospreay match yet, but between Stephanie Vaca and Mercedes Moné. And then Moné's presence on the show is basically a video package.
Fine. I like that it's title for title.
Yeah.
I think it just elevates it more so than
it
already was.
The video package is quite good as well, I guess, as far as these short video packages go. We now get the Blackpool Combat Club united as a foursome for the first time in the ring, at least on AEW television, against, I'm going to butcher this in advance, I'm so sorry, the CMLL four-man unit of Volador Jr., who, by the way, is goated. I love Volador Jr. Esfinag?
Esfinier? I don't know.
Esfinage, I think. Magnus and Rugido. I'm so sorry. I'm useless. I'm just a small little guy. I'm sorry. The story of the match is that it's basically built around Yuta being back and cool. And there were some awkward blips early, but then the second half of the match is strong. It really ignites into something quite exciting, in my opinion, when Esfinage and Claudio are in there. And Claudio, who just is incredible in the landscape of Lucha Libre. So that's 3 of the same letter. Alliteration is the work of you know what. He takes these monkey flip bumps, like he just clears the breadth of the ring, and then he tucks his neck. I was like, tuck your neck, you're gonna break your neck.
He's all right.
Like, Claudio was amazing in this match.
Because he's so tall as well, so it looks more stressful when he's taking
Yuta obviously was really good. Like, it looked like he'd not been injured.
Yeah.
I know he can hide a little bit more, for lack of a more respectful term, in an 8-man tag, where you can tag and sell on the outside. But every time he came in, it's like, I don't even know the guy. Remember when CM Punk was like anti-Prince Andrew for like 4 months in AEW. It's
Sweating
like,
all over the canvas.
when are you going to dry up, pal? None of that with Yuta.
Looks like Bobby Fish slipped out getting pinned there.
So Yuta was really good. Unexpectedly so, considering he'd been away. Claudio was incredible in this match. Volador Jr. was like, I described it in ups and downs. It's like Pac doing Manami Toyota with the way he did that sort of float over Code Red. Volador Jr. is an incredible pro wrestler. He's absolutely great. Danielson was kind of anonymous, but, he's probably beat up. Yeah. He's probably got bigger fish to fry in the short-term future. Honestly, like, the one thing that dragged this down, I thought Jon Moxley's kind of positioning was not great here. There was more than one occasion where, because of where he was stood, almost awkwardly, and knew what the next move was coming. And the whole point of a blistering all-action 8-man party tag is you meant to go, oh, bloody hell, he's coming.
Yeah.
Or they've come, or she's coming, or whatever. It's like, oh, you meant to, like, experience, like, total head loss. But it's hard to do that when it's like, oh, well, Moxley's going to DDT that guy, I think. yeah, you just DDT'd him. I thought Moxley had a weird off night here.
Yeah.
Basically, Wheeler Yuta gets the pin, and it was just... It existed to be nice, I guess, this match.
Yeah, I've got nothing to say on this, really. I hadn't isolated Moxley for particular criticism, but I didn't have much to praise either. I just Blackpool Combat Club is so boring that they bring this, like, fog down on my screen as I see them. And with Danielson was the more one, to be honest. It was a weird night for such a cool development in Danielson's character to occur following a match. It's the opposite of the Phoenix thing. Big things coming. So how are you going to sell me on that? Like, luckily it's Danielson. But I don't know. I thought, like...
You think he could have had a crushing loss here? Danielson in a singles match?
Yeah, maybe.
Or not wrestled at all?
It was
He's had a good night with his mates here. It's
him being indistinct in his team's win was a strange night for him to be like, enough's enough, I'm going to go on and win this big tournament.
But it's Danielson, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Danielson.
It was nice for you.
He must just be beat up a little bit.
Maybe. Nice for you. That was all I could really
every pro wrestler works out. Yeah, it was nice for you to. We get some stuff that I think we've already squared off. Jericho doing... as a man who's been eating chicken and dumplings for 30 years... What? You're a cartoon?
Yeah.
A bad one at that.
Not a good one.
We get a video package on Daniel Garcia. That would indicate to me maybe he's going to be in this ladder match. Is anyone going to walk through the door to get into this? It seems all AEW so far.
That's a good point, yeah. But yeah,
ladder match. No, he did mention the international title, actually. Yeah. He's been mentioning that for a while. Maybe both. Who cares? Do it all. Same things.
You want them in tags, don't you?
Same difference. I want them in tags. As long as I get to see that handsome face, I don't really mind one way or the other. And then we get that stuff with the Acclaimed trying to go into the Elite's office. Then we go back into the Elite's office again, where Christian Cage basically says, I got screwed. He didn't. But he's a heel. He's obviously going to say that at Forbidden, at Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
He basically all but says, I want another shot. And then the Young Bucks are like, not really at the world title. We don't have that much sway. Sway if you got, I don't understand it anymore. And the general gist is the all deserved gold. We'll see what we can do. Maybe a trios. Then the trios champions are heels, and I don't care about the trios.
The EVPs have got a henchman, I guess.
Like every segment I've just gone through, the last 5, by the way. Oh, this one wants a title. This one's title for title. It's very easy to not give a toss.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's too many belts, so the belts replace
Too many belts. Next up, and I haven't done my job because I didn't think of a song.
Oh, right, okay.
So basically, it was the one women's match on the show.
Yeah.
And the aim of the game, before we get to the name of the game, is, we just guess the times of the... Wilburn's not here, so I feel like I have to do it.
That's okay.
Basically,
save it
till
next
time
week's
that you hear
preview,
the first entrance theme, the first note of it, because it's usually in that 120 to 25 range, and basically it's just AEW saying, you know what, 2024, you can't not put the birds on.
Yep.
You can't not put the birds on. That is my perspective on their cynical, perception of women's wrestling, because it doesn't feel like a passion project, even though the indications are strong sometimes. But you're thinking, what is this thought process? Kind of baffling. I'll jingleize it for you. I'll make a jingle out of it, and it's there. Don't worry, guys. When the women come out to play, the main event ain't too far away. And that's the aim of the game. The name of the game is, well, here's a classic for you. You know when, like, a band don't play one of their hits on a tour for years and years and years? You're a gig goer. What's your...
I am hoping to see Block Party do Little Thoughts this summer. I haven't heard that since 2018. And even then, it's a rare. I think I've probably seen them 20 times and seen that 4, maybe 5 times. So
I'll do too. If you ask me. Well, this is ladies' night, and I'm thinking, what a night. Anyway, we'll play the game. Willow's so much better at this than me. Basically, I don't know what the answer is. You know what?
Do you want to save it for the preview?
We'll do it on the preview next week. Just in a song for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Thanks for taking care of the data to the two guys who do it, Jose Palomares and what's he called? Panda Blair. Jesus Christ. Sorry. I'm really sorry. Data, basically. I'm discombobulated. And it was Saraya versus Mariah May. Probably went too long. It wasn't particularly good. It wasn't particularly bad. Saraya can make a bit of noise. She's got that Butlins in her.
She certainly does.
She's got that Butlins in her. So I'll tell you what, if I escape the ring 2 or 3 times before you think the cool action's going to get started, you'll bloody get riled up.
You shut up.
Yeah. She's got that quality. You know, she can get the volume up. Doesn't necessarily justify being on TV all the time, especially when there's just so much talent in that women's division just begging for an opportunity, and they're all being consigned to Ring of Honor, half of them, which is upsetting. But the general gist is they have this match. Saraya's the heel. They do their stuff back and forth to each other, and then Saraya wins with, what was it used to be called in the Fed?
It was the PTO, which you can't use.
I don't know what it's called. It's basically
it's a Scorpion Crosslock.
Yeah, Scorpion Crosslock. And the idea is that whereas a few weeks ago, Toni Storm was like, oh, my child, my baby, she's in trouble. I'm going to throw in the towel. My read on this, and knowing what they do with the Toni Storm character, they'll completely turn her heel, and I'll be made a mug of next week. My read of this week is that Toni Storm, like the dynamic of the relationship with Mariah May is changing. Now, suddenly she grabs her head, forces it to the mother's bosom, rather than Mariah May running into the tit. Right, okay?
Yes.
It's basically, come here, my child, my child.
Yeah.
So I think Toni Storm's more, like, the more enthusiastic person in this dynamic at the moment. Obviously, Mariah May's affections are split and torn. So I think the idea behind this finish is that, go on, I think you can do it. I've done a great job mentoring you. You've done a great job of receiving and understanding my lessons. And I think, conversely, that even 4 weeks ago, you can withstand this pain. And I think this finish has existed because Mariah May can interpret the towel not being thrown in. It's like, I'm defenseless. It's a good finish. It's a really good submission finish. I'm defenseless throwing the towel. Oh, Mina Shirakawa wouldn't have done that. My Mina, mother, would have helped me out or whatever. And I think that'll all play out.
There's certainly more desperation to Toni Storm wanting Mariah May than Mina Shirakawa at this point.
Yes.
And I think Mariah May is playing up quite nicely to that in feeling like she has to oblige Toni Storm.
Yes.
Whereas there's clearly
She's just not that into you
historic
anymore.
love with Mina. So I think that was quite nicely played out.
So in the post-match, Harley Cameron and Saraya put the boots into Mariah May and Toni Storm. Shirakawa drives them all out. Mina Shirakawa and Toni Storm, I just find it so entertaining. And the match is going to be great. They kind of sort of like bump their breasts against one another. The idea being like, who's the best mom?
Who offers the best bosoms?
Who offers the best bosoms for the child?
Yes.
And then Mariah May's like, I want both. I'll take them both because I'm hardcore. She gives it the full Tommy Dreamer. And then she's in the middle of...
Nobody should go full Tommy Dreamer.
No. She's in the middle of the 4 breasts.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, which one?
This was great
It was a good pro wrestling visual, good visual gag. To which breasts do I latch?
Yeah.
And then Mina Shirakawa basically conveys, well, mine, I'm your mother, mine are better, and she pushes them together.
Yeah. Toni Storm feels paranoid. What the visual I was referring to was the one where like Mariah May is like, I love you both, and her head's like below, her head's at breast level, and they're giving each other evils as the match is announced for Forbidden Door.
Yeah.
Over Mariah May's head.
I can't wait for this match, you know.
I think this
match is gonna kick ass.
Yeah.
Like, I'm deeply into these very silly characters. I get what you get with NXT with this.
Yeah.
Because there'll be other outlets, other fans who are like, oh, it's just silly, sexualized nonsense. I think it's quite a good twisted psychosexual drama. Like, they're a child, but also the kind of all want to have sex with each other as well.
It's
a bit twisted, but I quite like that.
I just think that things are earned, honestly. Like Mariah May and Tony Storm, they put the work in. The Mina Shirakawa thing is a pre-existing thing that you've quite, like, as you pointed out yesterday,
it's
like,
a really
quite smartly folded
pivot,
into all of this. Like, the matches...
It's like really clever.
The matches should be good.
Yeah.
So that's a bonus. Like, I like the
bonus.
Yeah.
It's a point.
I buy all these characters. As silly as it is, I buy them all, and that's all I ever want, really. I got so much more out of this than the Blackpool Combat Club match, as an example.
I think what massively helps is that this is not some kind of be sexy, rub your tits together,
God, no.
blah, blah, blah,
No.
blah. At least I would be astonished if it came out, they were actually uncomfortable doing this. I feel their total enthusiasm and commitment to the bit.
I think they're locked in, yeah.
From a mile away.
Yeah.
Like Tony Storm in her promos and the ones that, like, she just talk for 2 minutes and she's got a dirty mouth and a dirty mind. So I was talking about my Forbidden Doors open, I'll clap those cheeks all the way to Georgia, Anna J. And those aren't the ones where it's like, they could be written or everything has to be clear. She just says this stuff because she likes it, seemingly, which helps my investment in this enormously. Because if I thought this was in any way imposed upon them, it would be pretty icky. In fact, more than icky.
It doesn't feel like that, no.
No, not at all. Not remotely. This is where we get the learning tree, whatever. Past that very quickly. This is also where we get the backstage promo where Danielson basically says, we've alluded to it, doesn't really feel like I've had this great year that I wanted for my final year as a full-timer. I entered the Continental Classic, didn't win. I've went up against Team Elite, didn't win. I tried to win the TNT title from Christian Cage, failed at that as well. But I'm going to win the Owen. I'm going to win the Owen and win that title at Wembley and be the best Bryan Danielson, basically.
Brilliant.
So it's looking like Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay 2 and MJF versus Swerve Strickland is your main event and semi-main for All in London.
Tremendous.
I mean,
that's how it goes, yeah.
If that's how it goes. It's basically not a response, but feels like in some way a response to there weren't really many big-time singles matches at Wembley last year. No, there are now.
It's Owen... It's balanced, really, because I said about the King of the Ring as well. This Owen making the #1 contender thing, it was great in the 90s. When he won the King of the Ring, he got the title shot at SummerSlam. It has helped the Owen exponentially. Kind of dirty little secret that the tournament's just felt like a nice gesture rather than anything that contributed a lot of value to the TV show from a wrestling standpoint. Like, every wrestler should have skin in the game here, shouldn't they? Like,
I can't
every
even
tournament
call
match
it
should matter.
Particularly great Owen match.
Not really.
Like, not the tournament, obviously.
Yeah. No, it's like, I remember you always highlighting the Joe Adam Cole final?
Yeah, it was piss poor.
Like, boring, wasn't it? But yeah, the stakes have made this already, and we've not even seen a tournament match.
Yeah. Main event time now. It's Swerve Strickland basically defeating Roderick Strong, as expected, to retain the AEW title. No post-match angle of which to speak either. I thought this was very good without being great.
Yeah.
I don't know if it just wasn't great on its own terms or if I've been spoiled, but I've got two things to point out with Swerve Strickland, which might have shaped my experience and critique here. There's a moment where I watched him, and bearing in mind everything he's done in AEW, the Lucha Underground run and all the rest of it, and the indies and stuff, there's an argument to be made that in this specific super indie hybrid style, you could consider him one of the best ever. Like, the evidence is piling up with this really great AEW run, and then he articulates that by doing a walking handstand into a head scissors on Roderick Strong that had no right to look as...
Yeah.
I mean, Roderick Strong probably took it really well. Had no right to look as good as it did.
So it's like a bigger guy now as well, isn't it?
Yes. So that was really hard. Yeah. Conversely, I always hate his forward roll into the flatliner. If he was moving like Ospreay or Leo Rush or Darby Allin, he's not as quick as them anymore because he's got that main event physique. That forward roll into a flatliner is just throwing a forearm in the face. It's not like this. You can unpick everything in wrestling, I think, if you try hard enough. And I've been doing that for my entire professional career. But you know what I mean? There are certain things where it's like, I just can't buy it. And I've got a lot of leverage towards the modern style as well, latitude. It's just too slow. Just kick him halfway through. It takes 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Not this, like, flash, you know? So I didn't really like that. That took me out of it. And what's worse, I think, for this match was the moment they chose to do the double down, come on, get up for this sort of thing to the crowd. But then the excitement levels and the volume spiked because Roderick Strong, this is one of the most demented apron spots I've ever seen, does that John Moxley, or Roderick Strong, like really suplex, I'm just going to throw you backwards and do a backflip or whatever. And then the back of his head clips the apron.
Oh, it was vile.
It looked vile, which basically also means awesome. And I was like, right, I'm back in now. I'm back in. And then, congratulations to Roderick Strong. You have joined the most esteemed and rare company of the pro wrestler who can sell and set up for the Swerve Stomp and not look like a complete arsehole. That, speaking of arseholes, our erstwhile colleague, he's still here, he's just, you know, he's on an errand. Has likened it to whoever sits there waiting for the Swerve Stomp has to do the finish him Mortal Kombat side to side. Everyone except Hangman Page, who manages to sit up organically right when Swerve's in the air. Roderick Strong here gets booted out the ring, and he does that. His leg feels like it's trapped, and then Swerve does the Swerve Stomp over the apron to him on the outside. Well done to Roderick Strong. Very few wrestlers, and Swerve's wrestled some great ones this year, have managed to really make that spot.
I think the changed environment helps, like where it is. But then that reminds you, well, maybe there's a problem with it as your standard finish. You know, if the standard environment for it doesn't really work.
Do you think it's noticeable that he's gone to the last call?
It's definitely. I think a few people have flagged this up about not just that finisher, but about his style and about the things that work and don't as a heavyweight world title performer, the kind of performer that Swerve has evolved into, ultimately, like the wrestling style and the match style. And maybe some wrestlers have flagged it themselves. It's like,
I doubt it.
How can we get to this? Because I feel...
I mean, he still does it.
He still does, I guess.
Maybe he just thought it doesn't look as good as... I mean, that kick's amazing, the last call.
Class.
What are your thoughts on the match? I mean, it was really good.
It was. Sure was. Like...
You're numb to good wrestling matches.
Yeah, badly. This wasn't... The thing is, right, this was fine. Of course it was fine. This was
probably a bit better than fine, but I've made that point. I won't labour on it anymore.
It was on the weaker end of the recent great Roderick Strong matches.
And the recent great Swerve ones.
Yep.
Swerve's had the Takeshita, that over-delivery against Brian Cage.
So they've kind of plateaued briefly against each other. I don't think this is the end of either. I don't think we're in the era anymore of like Roderick Strong being the recipient of the 6-week push, right, and then you get dissipated.
He loves Roddy Strong, doesn't he?
Tony Khan. I don't think he's going anywhere. And Swerve obviously has got far bigger fish to fry down the road, but it was just, I did feel like I was watching them, plateau against each other a little bit rather than like rise. Like this was the sort of the peak of the ascent rather than them going on to the next level. Yeah, it was fine. Like, it was, sorry.
There's some cool bits in it.
Yeah, there's some cool bits.
There's some really cool bits in it.
Yeah, they sure happened. I've got nothing to say about the match. Tell you what, didn't get what I thought.
Next time DIY on SmackDown work a less good match than this, I want you to point it out. In the exact same style, essentially.
Yeah, but I don't always isolate them for praise unless they're working with like workers, like Don Mysterio's new business.
Okay, cool.
The one thing I want to say about this, earnest criticism, I thought the title was going to help me care more about the near falls. If anything, it had the reverse effect. I actually felt like this was a little bit below what I want from an AEW world title match.
I knew he was going to win.
Yeah, but I knew that...
if you're a champion, you should probably...
I knew that MJF was going to beat Ricky Starks.
Yeah, if you're a champion, you should raise the stakes. Yes. No, a great point, well made. And that is the end of the podcast, really. Thank you very much for joining us. If you've got your thoughts, of course, on Dynamite... or anything AEW related, you can follow us on WhatCulture at WhatCulture. You can follow us on X at WhatCulture WWE. Whilst you're there, you can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow me at Sidgwick. Coming up later today, podcast-wise, or is it at some point over the weekend?
Over the weekend, I think, yeah.
There's a Battleground, NXT Battlegrounded. I'm not doing that bit. Preview coming your way. Back tomorrow to... Is Collision on tomorrow? Because like the set up a match for Rampage.
There's nothing for Collision, was there?
The setup and I'm gonna have to freaking watch it. Mina Shirakawa versus Serena Deeb. That's gonna be pretty good, I think.
Good, yeah.
I mean, let's watch Rampage. What a joke. So I don't know if there's a Collision. Certainly doesn't seem like it from Dynamite. If there is, and I'm around, I'll preview that. And these dickheads with their SmackDown jokes. We'll do that tomorrow as well. So stick around and subscribe. And earnestly, thank you very much for listening. See you later.